Greetings, fellow armchair Imagineers. Tiki here.
And Jacob Wile, too.
And welcome to one of my big, like maybe top 10 of all time bucket list podcasts for this channel. Jacob, we're doing it. We're doing it. We're ripping off the Band-Aid. And because DuckTales delivered us some awesome Three Caballeros action this week, what better time, what better way to celebrate one of the most bizarre, surrealistic, and just head trips of a movie that Disney's ever produced. That's still, by all means, very educational and an effective travelogue. Dragon, I want to go to both Mexico and Brazil, but I digress. Dragon, before we start out, I'm calling you Dragon. I apologize, Jacob.
It's all right.
Before we start out here, Jacob, because like I said, I'm very much looking forward to the discussion we're going to have this evening about the Three Caballeros, which is one of my favorite underrated Disney movies. But we've got to address kind of the elephant in the room. Everyone in the geek community probably already knows it by now, but Stan Lee has passed away at the ripe old age of 95, and yeah, he will be missed for sure. And I want to address this just right up front, folks. It was kind of a tough decision for Dragon and I. We kind of had a conversation about this. If we were to go live with a full Stan Lee in memoriam tonight. And here's what we came up with. We just decided that the wound is too fresh right now, and we wouldn't even know how to format something like this, because basically this is the biggest in memoriam we've ever done, like short of Robin Williams. Like, we need to figure out a structure for it. We need to figure out the best way to to pay tribute to Stan. We need to figure out what elements of his life we want to go over. There's a lot to kind of put into the planning of a podcast like that. It's not really something that we could have just whipped together overnight, just because we want to give as much respect to the man as possible. And, there's only going to be one chance to record this particular podcast, which is a podcast that Dragon and I, as Marvel fans, and Jacob, I'm sure you too, to a certain extent, it's like, it was the podcast we hoped we would never have to record, but now that we have to record it, we want to kind of put as much time and effort into it as possible to getting it right. So the Stan Lee in memoriam podcast will be going live on Wednesday. I want to say about 10 p.m. Eastern. We'll have a panel of myself, Jacob, Sandy Claus will be there, Blue Dragon 5, of course. Possibly even Monkey might stop by. It's just going to be a big in memoriam, and not to mention the 2 days is going to give us a good chance to kind of, contextualize our thoughts and really put them into words, I think, much more so than we can today, when we're all just kind of in the shocked grieving process of it all. So very much just want to get that out there to the geek community, because by all means, first and foremost, So You Want to Be an Imagineer is a geek podcast, and it wouldn't be right to address it tonight. But like I said, if you're disappointed that we're not doing an in memoriam, like a full-on in memoriam for Stan tonight, don't worry. We're just putting in the work to really make sure that we can iron out all the kinks to it and really make sure it comes out right. And like I said, Wednesday will be the date where we can all kind of get together, and maybe we can read some comments in the chat too, if you guys want to get those ready. If you're watching right now, we can read off some in memoriams and just have a time celebrating the man's life and the man's legacy. Jacob, anything you want to say about the situation before we dive into Caballeros?
Not in particular. You said pretty much everything.
Okay. So, Jacob, on a lighter note, let's get into the Three Caballeros. Of course, this came about because DuckTales introduced the two other Caballeros besides Donald, and Jose and Panchito. And Panchito, man, I'm sorry, I'm saying both those names wrong. It's Jose. Joe. I'm sorry.
Jose and Panchito.
Jose, yeah, right. Technically, it's Joe, right? Isn't it just Joe?
No, it's Jose, but this is saying Joe for some reason.
well, yeah, we'll get into that in the movie. I feel like there's kind of like a loose cannon there when it comes to his name. uh, Jacob, I love this movie, as you know, as we talked about when we went live with the DuckTales episode. I really, this is one of my favorites. I'm very thankful to my grandparents to have the faith in me as a little kid to get this movie and, really kind of appreciate the artistic merits of it, even as a little child. And so for that reason, man, I have a ton of nostalgia for this movie. I have, this might have been one of the VHSs that I watched the most as a kid, and it was here's the thing, Jacob, it was a challenge to get through as a kid because it's got a very bizarre pace. It doesn't have a story structure at all. Some sequences just really drag, but Jacob, I feel like it was a challenge in a good way for me as a young lad, as a young tiki, because it was a challenge in terms of like this movie throws so much at you. And we'll get into that with the commentary. There's so many different art styles, different themes, different kind of surrealistic moments, and also an effective travelogue, an educational travelogue worked into it. It's a crazy film. I've watched it twice in the past 48 hours, and I appreciate it all the more. So, Jacob, you've never seen this movie up until today, so I'm dying to know your thoughts.
Do I need to give all my thoughts up front, or should I just reveal them as I go?
Man, get them out there. Get out a thesis statement.
All right. Well, as Tiki just mentioned, I've never actually seen this movie before, or its technical prequel, Saludos Amigos, which introduced Jose.
I've only seen Saludos Amigos like once or twice. It's not nearly as good as this, I don't think.
Well, you've seen it more than I have, then.
It's got its merits to it, but this is definitely much more ambitious.
I know that it's almost like twice as long too.
But
so this is my first time going into this, and of course, and even before the DuckTales episode the other day that reintroduced the Three Caballeros, I was familiar with them through various other means like comic books, House of Mouse, and all that stuff.
Epcot, of course.
Epcot. Oh yeah, there's one sequence in particular that especially reminded me of my trip to Epcot.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I was familiar with these characters for quite a while. And I've been meaning to get around to this movie and a lot of the other older Disney stuff, but I just never did.
Well, Jacob, I don't know. Start of if this podcast goes over well, I think we might have to start re-exploring stuff like, the Saludos Amigos of the world, the the Melody Times of the world. You know what I mean? These movies that have kind of been lost to the shuffle.
Oh yeah. Well, so yeah, it was definitely interesting going into this. It's like a rarity for Disney for me. It was uncharted territory.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've seen like a lot of the classic stuff, but this is like one of the ones that always eluded me. But strangely enough, also Melody Time, I never actually saw that either. I've seen the Peter and the Wolf segment, but not anything else really.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's pretty much the most famous segment from that movie, but I'm getting way off topic.
Yeah, Melody Time, I feel like I've seen all the segments in like different, chopped up and presented in different compilations, but I've never actually sat down and seen the whole movie.
But I will have to say, you are definitely right, Diggy. This movie is for sure an experience to behold.
Right?
It's like if a travelogue met a roller coaster ride.
That's a perfect way to describe it. It's just, oh man, I mean, it's a product of its time, Jacob.
And maybe with a cross of LSD thrown in too.
Oh man. And here's the thing about it. It starts out innocently enough, right? It starts out like, okay, we're going to watch a couple cartoons about a penguin and a donkey that can fly. And then by the end of it, it's like, what the fuck did I just go through?
It's like, yeah, I mean, the first part I was like, okay, this is like standard, Disney stuff. It's like,
Right, right.
it's like, like stuff that could have like been repackaged as shorts and like individual shorts and stuff like that. No big
Uh,
deal. But then Jose enters the picture.
as soon as Jose enters, it's like, okay, like time to time to drink the electric Kool-Aid, kids.
And that's pretty much like when like the first two shorts really had nothing to do with Donald. Like it's just
Yeah,
like, okay, he's
Jacob,
watching.
I feel like the first two shorts are probably like my least favorite part of the movie just because they feel really disconnected from everything else.
Other than the whole Mexico and Brazil themes.
Right, right. I mean, to me, they really feel like they're just there to pad out the movie. I get it. It's a compilation film. It's a package film. But honestly, Jacob, I feel like this is the finest package film that Disney ever did because it goes so much more beyond just being a package film, a compilation. I mean, it's especially in the last two thirds, it's just like I don't know what the hell it is, man. It defies description. It really does. All right. So Jacob, did you like it? Is he there? Is he not there? Hello, Jacob, buddy. Uh, huh. Hold on, folks. I'm gonna drop out and come back in really quick. Maybe it's something on my end. Give me 1 sec. Okay. Well, I'm back, folks. Let's see. I'm not even sure if you guys can hear me right now. Yeah, yeah. It sounds like my mic's back. Okay. Sorry about that, folks. Jacob is having internet issues right now, so hopefully he'll be back. And what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm probably going to start the movie. And then once Jacob comes back on, I'm going to give him a timestamp. So let me just me just message him really quick. Sorry about this, folks. This is going so well, man. This is a dream podcast of mine. I don't want to ruin it. Okay, I'm going to start the movie and give you a time code when you come back in. Okay. Before we start, folks, just a little bit of background on this thing. Trust me, like I'm not even like. Oh wait, hold on. Is that him?
Hello.
Hey.
I'm sorry, folks. My internet crapped out on me. I'm using my data right now because I don't know what the heck happened to my internet.
Oh no, you're using your data. I feel bad now.
No, I have unlimited, so it's fine.
Oh, okay. Are you going to be able to watch the movie and do this at the same time?
uh, I mean, I think the movie's loaded, so it's. You can continue talking and I'll try and provide what I remember.
Okay. Yeah. So just to get some background out of the way on this, Jacob. Of course, this was a South America trip. This was inspired by a South America trip that Walt Disney took at the insistence of his brother Roy. It was essentially a goodwill trip to South America. It was kind of like an ambassador trip with Walt, his wife Lillian, and a few of the key animators and their family members. Among the animators was the legendary Frank Thomas, Ollie Johnson, and of course Mary Blair. And Mary Blair would go on to be the most influential artist to come out of this trip, because basically this trip changed her whole art style. This trip opened her up to a lot of different color palettes, a lot of different things that she had never seen before in her life. And lo and behold, her art went from being very realistic, kind of like photogenic, photographic scenery and everything, to the bright, vivid colors, the murals, the soft tones, the pastels. Mary Blair is my favorite artist, Jacob. Mary Blair is like, out of all the Disney things, out of all just in art in general, I have a very soft spot for Mary Blair. I have a huge, like, that style is my style, Jacob. That style just speaks to me. It really does. And so throughout this movie, there's a ton of Mary Blair influence. I mean, this movie isn't all Mary Blair all the way through, but there's definitely key sequences where it's like, oh yeah, there's my Blair. There's my Blair, darn it.
Yeah, I can.
So yeah, this movie was, of course, as you mentioned, Jacob, it was the second movie to come out of the South America trip. The first one was Saludos Amigos, which was, by all intents and purposes, just kind of a collection of shorts. There were, like, if I remember correctly, there were like 3 or 4 of them, the most memorable being a Goofy short. And as you said, it was the introduction of Jose Carioco. And so that kind of got the ball rolling at the very least for Three Caballeros. But Three Caballeros was basically what they did to basically use up their creative energy, because they still had, think of it as almost an expansion pack to an animated movie, Jacob. That's how I think of it. It's like they have so much more content that they want to get to. They have so many more ideas that they want to add to the core product. And how did they get those ideas on paper? They do a second follow-up movie. And that second follow-up movie, they wanted a clear narrative. They wanted a structure to it. They wanted the three characters that you could really get behind. One to specifically represent the United States, one to represent South America, and one to represent Mexico. We already had the United States bird and the South America bird, of course. So this movie introduced us to Panchito Pistoles, who is my personal favorite of the Three Caballeros, because, my God, he's just a live wire of energy. So, yeah, and lo and behold, we have the movie that we have now. In the immortal words of the nostalgia critic, Donald Duck literally spends the last third of this movie trying to get laid, and it's a sight to something that Disney would never, ever, ever do nowadays, and I love it all the more for that. Jacob, I feel like we need to, one of the things we need to really establish in this podcast, we need to keep a running counter throughout this movie of things that Disney would never do nowadays.
Yeah, I noticed quite a few of them when as I was watching.
Oh, there's quite a bit.
Well, and good news, my internet came back on.
Good, good. So you'll be able to both be on here and then also watch the movie.
Yes, I even refreshed the page just in case.
Awesome, awesome. Good to hear. Good to hear. Okay.
My
Uh,
internet does that randomly sometimes.
oh, I know. Mine does too, man, and it freaks me out. I honestly had that happen like right before I went to work today, and I had to go all day wondering like, is my internet going to be back up? Is my internet going to be back up? Isn't
Now,
it sad?
what was I
Internet.
saying before? What was I saying before I randomly got cut off?
I don't know, Jacob. I'm sorry. I'm.
Alright, but
I think I was more saying something. I think I was more laying out just kind of my appreciation for the movie. So I don't even necessarily think you got cut off. You just kind of
alright,
randomly. I asked you a question and you just weren't there.
well, I'm sorry.
It's fine. It's fine.
Hey, let's get to the movie.
All right, folks. So we're going to do our level best to keep this as conversational as possible. But if you don't want to pull up the movie and watch it along with us, by all means, that's okay. We'll do our, we're gonna make this conversational. We're not gonna go beat by it or anything. But I do think, especially for this movie with the visuals and everything, we're gonna spend a lot of time talking about the visuals. So for this movie, it would not be a bad idea to go ahead and rent this on Amazon Prime, pull it up on Watch Cartoons, or just get out the copy that you might have of it and go ahead and get to timestamp 00 as I do that as well, Jacob. I apologize. I'm a little behind.
All right.
Okay. Okay. Let me just make sure I'm at 00. Yep, 00. Okay, Jacob, you ready to go?
Yep.
All right, folks, let's do it. The Three Caballeros in 1, 2, 3, go.
Oh, I forgot to
You.
mute it.
We don't want to get copyrighted, Jacob. All right, so the first thing you're going to notice here is all this Mary Blair artwork in the title cards, Jacob. This is distinctly Mary Blair right here. Like I said, all the soft pastels, all the kind of like the minimalistic details. That's one of Mary Blair's big aesthetic touches. And what do you think of this opening credits?
I thought it was really interesting, and I recognize a lot of names too.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
That's a good old Ub in there.
Right, right. Sterling Holloway,
Oh yeah.
Ward Kimball, Eric
Um,
Larson.
of course, Frank Thomas and Ollie Johnston.
Oh yes, oh yes.
A lot of the Nine Old Men.
And that's the fun thing about Disney movies. I feel like Disney movies is kind of like they can be like a my first film appreciation lesson where you see all these names in the credits and you start to recognize these names. At least I did as a kid. And especially also with the voice actors, which we'll get into with Sterling Holloway, who's going to come up really quick in this movie. The voice actors in particular, I was like, it was like one of the first times I was just like, oh man, like like they're using the same people for, it was kind of like, you know what I mean? It's like, with the credits and with the voice actors, you kind of, even as a very young child, you kind of start to appreciate like that there's a team behind this working on all of these things.
And heck, Sterling Holloway went on to be the Stork in Dumbo, Cod Jungle Book, and probably most famously Winnie the Pooh.
Yeah, Sterling Holloway was man, he's an icon. He really is.
And now we get to see Donald Duck opening his presents.
Yeah, first of all, of course, we get one of my favorite Disney trivia questions. What is Donald Duck's birthday? Friday the 13th. Doesn't matter the year, just Friday the 13th.
Yeah. It's just kind of
So yeah, Jake, on the thoughts on the birthday present framing device. I'm very curious how you felt about this.
no, it's kind of interesting to see how that all works out. I mean, it's just an interesting way to frame it, and even though it doesn't really hold much to the overall story, it's just kind of an interesting way to present all of it.
I feel like at the very least it makes sense as a way to get the three Caballeros together. But I didn't like I said, now we're in the first one. The collection of shorts on the film reel. And this is definitely my least favorite package of the movie. It feels the most like a package feature. However, if I'm going to go all auteur theory with this, I feel like this is all intentional, Jacob. I feel like, as we already said, this is basically just kind of almost getting us off guard. You know what I mean? Almost kind of like setting us up with a false expectation of what this movie is going to actually be like by the end of it.
Yep. And it's just kind of a weird. And this is kind of unrelated, but technically, Donald's been in more WDFA films than Mickey has.
I can believe that.
I mean, he was in Saludos
Oh
Amigos,
shit!
this, and Fantasia. I mean, I'm not counting stuff like the Goofy movie and stuff like that. Technically,
I
and
mean,
Mickey,
at the end of the day, Donald's just a much more versatile character.
pretty much all Mickey's only theatrical in the WDFA stuff has been Fantasia.
Uh huh.
I mean, granted, Fantasia is probably more well known, but still. Even Donald got his own bit in Fantasia 2000.
Yeah, and Mickey wasn't the starring role of Fantasia by any means.
No, but his segment's arguably the most famous.
Well, yeah, it is, but Fantasia is much more than just the Sorcerer's Apprentice.
I,
I don't want to get into that.
I know, I know. I'm just saying. I mean, and already we're off topic from this own movie.
No, it's all good. It's all good. I like to keep this conversational. So let's talk about Pablo the warm-blooded penguin.
It doesn't. I definitely like the idea as an interesting concept, even though it kind of like as you mentioned, it kind of does feel disconnected from the rest of the movie. I mean,
This is the thing, Jacob. I feel like the flying donkey one is the one that really feels disconnected.
yeah,
This one can actually kind of get behind just because it sort of sets up the whole travelogue nature of what we're going to see in this movie.
and at least this one has something to do with birds.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, it's like, like, I do like this one a lot more than the donkey one. I'll say that much. I feel like Pablo is a very memorable character, at least for me as a little kid growing up with this movie. I never forgot about him. It's a very short, but it's it's got a lot of charm to it though. I like his penguin friends. I like how morose Pablo is throughout a lot of it, how he's just kind of like sulking around, but he's not giving up. Um, like look at this right now. It's like, he's just like, he's just like, he's trying. He's giving it his best shot, but it's just not going to work out for him.
And you can just tell the penguin's personalities just by looking at him.
Uh,
It's just like
yeah, this one is and of course Sterling Holloway is the narrator.
yep. And I just love a lot of these penguins are like, oh, there's Pablo at it again.
Now, Jacob, this might have been the very first time that I recognized like Sterling Holloway. I was like, that's goddamn Winnie the Pooh, isn't it?
It's like it's kind of funny that they even refer to him by name as like Dr. Holloway.
Right.
It's like yep, they're pretty much like yep, we're reusing voice actors. Well, then again, well, I don't actually know. It's like did this come before or after Dumbo and stuff like that? Because I know
This came after Dumbo, before Winnie the Pooh.
I know it's before Winnie the Pooh, but
Yeah, after Dumbo.
because I know like Dumbo was pretty much the first one that he did for them.
Yes, I want to say Dumbo was his first appearance for the company. I'd have to go back and look that up.
And I know like they reused a lot of the same actors over and over again.
Of course, Verna Felton.
Yeah, Verna Felton, John O'Malley, or whatever his name was.
My personal favorite, Bill Thompson.
Yep, Droopy himself.
Of course, Ed Wynn.
Oh yeah,
Gotta love
Edwin, of course.
that.
I must admit, I do like the subdued visual style of this one. It's definitely more subdued and kind of the more realistic style you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, Jacob, watching this, like the first 10 minutes of the movie, it catches you off guard, man. There is no way that you know what is coming if you haven't already
Mm.
experienced this movie. I mean,
I mean, as
Jacob, you knew ahead of time, of course, because I kind of hyped it up that this movie was going to get surreal. But I'm curious, like just watching this first 10 minutes, where you just like, I don't know what Tiki's talking about.
no, I mean, I was anticipating it, but at first, this is. I mean, yeah, that's like if Disney just basically released this as a separate short in the 1940s. Okay, I mean, this is it just be they could basically pass it off as a separate short that they did. a
Uh-huh.
penguin just a penguin just wanting to get used to the cold, wanting to get warm. I mean, a good formula for a short.
I do love the little Robinson Crusoe cameo.
Yeah, that was a fun gag. And there's the train, which, funnily enough, I just realized actually comes back a bit later.
Well, that's the thing, Jacob. There are several things that kind of tie this movie together that I noticed. Several very, very, very loose threads.
And I just like the little detail. I just saw the water dripping off the earth. I
Mhm.
mean, it's just I like a lot of little details like that in these movies. And it looks like Pablo didn't really think this plan through. I mean, the boat was a nice idea, but maybe he shouldn't have made it out of just ice. Although I do like now, though, like I said, I do really like the way this sets it up, and as you said, it's like it definitely lulls you into a false sense of security as to prepare you for the craziness to come.
Yeah, it's in a way, Jacob. It's almost kind of like the short before the actual movie.
Yeah, in a way, I could definitely see it like that.
Which, to tell you the truth, is kind of why out of all the stuff in this movie, the donkey one is the one that I would cut. But we'll get to that.
I guess I do really do like this segment, though. I mean, it's just a neat, fun little segment. There's just not really that much more I can say about it. Although I don't know if in reality a penguin would actually like bananas. Someone needs to do research on that.
What's your time? I feel me.
What?
Amp.
Ah.
Jacob.
What?
Timestamp. I need your timestamp.
Oh, sorry. And it's about 11:06.
11:06. Okay. Okay.
Sorry, I did. You kind of cut out for a moment.
Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Hello.
yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Cool. Cool. All right.
Uh,
So I do like the ending. It's just kind of like, oh well, some people never learn. You can never please some people.
oh yeah. Oh, I do like this little segment too about the different birds of South America.
Yeah, that's the thing, Jacob. This is actually one of my favorite parts of the movie, just because of the character that we're about to meet, the inherent Disney Woody Woodpecker ripoff, who's just bizarre, and I can't believe he exists.
The world famous Araquan bird.
But
And there,
no, bird animation is kind of classic vintage Disney. You know what I mean? It's like the kind of the characterization of the birds, the exaggeration, but still kind of the edutainment of getting in, kind of like at the very least, sort of an amalgamation of what the bird character traits might be.
Oh yeah. The Aragorn bird hasn't really been used that much, but he's still retained like some kind of legendary status.
Yeah, I feel like he's in the same vein as like the Florida orange bird, where he's a very obscure character, but people know him.
It's like, and again, especially like through his appearances in House of Mouse and stuff like that. I mean, again, House of Mouse kind of like introduced me to the Aragorn bird. It's like a lot of like that show really introduced me to a lot of classic Disney stuff.
Oh,
and it, and even then, he seems tame here compared to what they eventually did with him. Believe it or
oh,
not,
people always say he's a Woody Woodpecker ripoff, but that's just me.
I mean, did he? He probably did. He come after Woody Woodpecker? I'm unsure.
I believe he came way after Woody Woodpecker.
I mean, I just don't know. I mean, I know a classic animation. I just don't remember when Woody Woodpecker came from.
I could be wrong. I could be wrong, but
I mean, I
regardless,
don't.
he's Woody Woodpecker.
I mean, I don't doubt it.
What do you think of the song?
The Araquan song.
Yes.
It's gibberish nonsense. I mean, is that a good way to describe it?
I would say so, yeah, but I definitely have some fond memories of it as a child.
I mean, I thought it was pretty. I thought it was funny. Definitely creative for sure.
Okay, here we go. Here we go. This is man, can we just skip this part? I don't know, Jake. Even as a kid, this part never interested me. It's slow paced. It really doesn't have anything to do with birds. It's like, yeah, it's a donkey and he can fly, and the guy happens to be a gaucho, but I don't know, man. This is the one that I would cut out of the movie. I really would.
I mean, this is the one this is basically pretty much one that I would repurpose into its own short.
And that's the thing. It's an effective short. I just don't think it belongs here. I feel like Pablo does a much better job of kind of setting, Pablo accomplishes a couple things. One, it's sort of a short before the actual movie gets going. As we keep saying, like in our own little headcanon, it kind of lulls you into a false sense of security. And more importantly, it's a travelogue. This isn't a travelogue.
Yeah, it's just. I mean, it does pretty much the same thing as the others. That they just tell a story, and it's an interesting story at that about a flying donkey. And I don't know if it's like based on any folklore or anything like that. If it actually is, that would kind of make it some kind of travel log or something. But it's just like a standard. It's just like a regular Disney short about a flying donkey that wins a donkey race.
And it ends incredibly abruptly, which we'll get to.
Yeah, it's like yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. I like the idea and this concept, and it would have made it an interesting short. Heck, it could have even made an interesting movie in all its own.
It could have made a movie. I could see that.
They made him. Look, they did Dumbo, so why not this? I mean, like,
Well,
I mean,
this is very derivative of Dumbo. I feel like this. If I were in the writers' room, I wouldn't be surprised if the pitch for this was like, "Hey, Dumbo was popular. Let's do Dumbo again."
it's like I've seen a house fly and I've seen an elephant fly, but I've never seen a donkey fly.
Oh, nice tie.
Nice tie into what?
Shrek month.
Oh, I wasn't even doing that as a Shrek month. That's like this elephant fly song. But
Well, I know, but also we have that moment in Shrek where Donkey
like,
flies.
hey, but you've never seen a donkey fly. Well, technically, I guess technically Shrek, we did. It was here first.
Right, right. Yeah,
Suck
come on, get some culture.
What was that?
I said, come on, donkey, get some culture.
Yeah, but to be fair, not a lot of people are familiar with this. I wouldn't be surprised if even Katzenberg was familiar with this. And it's a joke
I
here.
would be shocked if Katzenberg was familiar with this movie.
Well, who knows?
I mean, I it exists, but I'd be shocked if he's like actively studied it.
And it's just a joke anyway, so it doesn't really even matter. Right.
How to Train Your Donkey.
I mean, like I said, this still is an interesting movie nonetheless. I mean, an interesting short nonetheless. It just kind of jumps all over the place.
Yeah, it jumps all over the place. There's no real structure to it. There's no real story to it beyond
Well,
just like, hey,
well, it's kind of
I've
like,
got a donkey. Isn't that cool?
well, I mean, technically, the whole story, the structure thing, matches that with fits the rest of the movie in that regard. Then,
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. But we don't get the cool animation yet, Jacob. They're still kind of cock teasing us with the cool groundbreaking animation. If you want a live action mixed with the animation, you're gonna have to work for it, darn it.
and it's actually kind of interesting to like, and then I just really like. It's really interesting to kind of like see the culture of this time, like, how it's presented it here. It's like it's actually really an interesting look. I
Mhm.
mean, you know what I'm trying to say here. There's so many ways they could have gone with this kind of story, but I'm glad they just like kind of did it like in a normal, average kind of way. And even then, it's
Yeah,
still
yeah.
hard. I mean, don't get me wrong, and I like a lot of the gags in this movie in this short too. But in the end, it's like at the end, it's like it's like at the beginning, it like tells a solid story, but then it falls on gags near the end. It wasn't a particularly gag heavy short until the very end. If you get what I'm saying,
And it just has no idea how to wrap up.
you know what I'm saying. It's like if it was a gag heavy short in its entirety, that would have been fine. But just like it just starts relying on them far too often, and especially near the end, and it just wraps up way too quickly and easily.
Yeah, I feel you. And I honestly, if we're gonna need to have this short in the movie, I would have liked a couple more minutes where, the townsfolk, like, maybe the flying donkey does something good for the townsfolk, or the kid gives the pesos back, or, something like that, some sort of lesson learned. And instead, we're literally left with, and we flew far away, never to be seen again, burrito or me. And I'm like, what kind of lesson is that?
Yeah, it's like
Eat everyone out of your money and then you run away from your problems and basically go into hiding? What?
it doesn't like I said, it just ends too abruptly. I mean, I know there's like a package film and they probably had to cut some stuff and everything, and I know it's like not meant to be like taken entirely seriously, but it just really feels like they could have just fleshed it out more. I mean, like and like he basically he presents like the fact that he has wings as like a big problem, but then they fly away. Then it's like, as you pointed out, it just doesn't really do much.
Yeah, like I said, Jacob, I already feel like this story gets a little too much screen time as it is.
And
And so
I just realized the kid kind of looks like Pinocchio.
he does kind of look like Pinocchio.
I mean, like the face, the
At
hair,
the end of the day, I would just cut this short out and maybe just give, 5 more minutes to the Caballeros just bouncing off one another.
that would have been interesting. And here,
Which honestly, we'll get into it with the commentary, but we don't get enough of that in this movie.
it would have been nice to see at least a little bit more of Jose and Panchito.
Yeah, for a movie called The Three Caballeros, this is much more of a Donald movie than the other two. The other two are just kind of on the sidelines for a lot of it.
Like, and Panchito doesn't even come into it like the last 20 minutes.
Right, right.
Jose. I would
Well,
even from the
David
original.
the Flying Donkey, neither him nor me was ever seen again.
I think I'm a bit ahead of you.
I'm
I'm at like 22 minutes.
I'm having a hard time keeping track of you.
I'm at 22:15. Let me know when you get there.
22. Well, now I'm at 22:30, so let me know when you get there.
Okay, I'm there.
Okay.
Sorry, sorry,
So
folks.
right?
Yeah, we shall be synced up now. I'm like at 22:40.
Okay. Yeah. We're good.
I've
We're
always
good.
liked okay, I've always liked Jose as a character.
Yeah, so here's where the movie really starts to this is my favorite sequence in the movie, Jacob. But I'll say that much. This whole Bahia sequence is I feel like it's the most solidly animated. I feel like it tells a comprehensive story and it actually makes sense. It doesn't go off the rails with surrealism, but it definitely embraces surrealism. It gives
Anime.
us a culture, but it doesn't bog us down in edutainment.
It's a really beautiful. It's really beautiful short too.
Yeah, this is this is top notch, man. This is Disney at its finest.
It's like what's it called? The multi. It's kind of like the multiplane camera almost. You can definitely tell they like use the multiplane here. I mean, am I mistaken in that?
Jacob, I don't know, man. I think that once again you're a little far ahead of me, and I don't know how this is happening.
No, I mean like it's like I'm should be still where you are, the 23 and 23:40, about 24 minutes.
Jacob, I think your copy is maybe a little faster than mine is.
Huh? That's weird.
And I say that is because you're watching it and I'll watch cartoons, right?
Yeah.
And I'm watching it on Amazon. Let me ask you this, Jacob. What is the timestamp overall? How long does it say your movie is?
I don't know. About hour and 8 minutes, 37 seconds.
Okay, you see that explains it because on my copy's crap. My copy's an hour and 11 minutes and 35 seconds. So yeah, yours is definitely sped up.
Oh,
Uh darn it. Oh well, we'll just have to work with it.
whoops. Sorry,
Yeah.
sorry, folks. I'm not trying to ruin this.
No, it's my fault, Jacob, because I was the one who suggested you use watch cartoons in the first place. You probably should have just used Amazon like I did, so we were on the same page. Um, so it's my fault.
No, no.
Yeah,
Well,
Jacob,
I
the
guess still get the gist of.
is definitely a multiplane shot for sure.
Yeah, I was referring to like the city shot. That's the
Yeah.
okay. It's like I'll try and just like basically just like describe what I'm seeing. I mean, considering my copy is like 5 minutes faster than yours.
Yeah, because I just saw this movie and I'm pretty familiar with it. So if you can just kind of just give us some benchmarks to chew on, I'm sure that we can we can hold this conversation. I'll just not rely on like pointing out specific like, hey, look at this thing happening at this specific moment that you may or may not be seeing. And in a way that makes it less conversational anyway. So it's fine. We're fine.
Well, I just got past the scene with the two doves.
Yeah, that's very nice.
I'll pause once my segment ends so we can pretty much be on the same page. But then I just really like love the so this is another one where like, you're talking about like the surrealist, not the surrealist, but the semi-realistic shots. Like it's kind of like a realism meets fantasy kind of look in this.
It's like magical realism in a way.
Yeah, and it's like I really appreciate like the art style. It's like you don't even see a single person, and it's basically just a bunch of, and not even a lot of animation in that one. It's just a bunch of steady shots.
Yeah, it's just a lot of landscape shots and beautiful colors, and every single frame of this is like a freaking painting, man. I just want to hang it all over my wall.
That would make a really neat painting. I mean, really, really neat print.
Mhm.
If only we could like find the original cells of that. That'd be really cool.
Okay, so and then we transition back into Jose, who's he's got the cigar. He's in that kind of like blue and purple lighting for a second.
Yeah, that was really neat. That was really neat.
Uh,
Like,
all
have
right,
you
and
ever
then you're just like, hey, Jose has multiplying powers for some reason. Why not? Let's just run with it.
like have you ever been to Bahia?
And then
Bahia.
we have all these scaling jokes.
This is definitely where the movie starts to ramp up in its weirdness factor.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Just
Like
because, like,
before this, it was just like a standard, like okay, it's like okay, short about penguins, okay, okay. Then there's a flying donkey, and now there's a panoramic shots of a stuff of Daia or whatever. I forget what its name is. And now suddenly, Jose is being able to multiply and shrink Donald.
yeah, he shrinks Donald by bonking him on the head with a giant mallet, which then just shrinks him down to his size.
Yeah, it's
And
like
then to add to the weirdness, the four Jose's are singing about, have you ever been to Bahia? Have you ever been to Bahia? And then Donald poses the question, have you been to Bahia?
has
And the
anyone?
four Jose's are like, well,
No.
no.
Let's go.
And I'm just like, then what the fuck are you hyping it up for?
Well, maybe he's read about it in good travel logs.
I guess so. All right, so I love this train. This is a very Mary Blair shot, Jacob. I could basically point out every shot in this movie that's a Mary Blair shot, and this train is definitely one of them with the backdrops, the color palette.
It definitely does remind me of some of the work I've seen from her, especially like stuff from Alice in Wonderland.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
I mean, you could definitely see like that. Definitely see that's her style in this. I didn't. Why does the train have a square wheel again? Basically,
Because it's Caballeros, Jacob.
okay. Should we even ask any questions as to why anything happens in this movie?
No, you can't. You can't. This movie makes no narrative sense whatsoever.
It just is. I mean, there's no why. This movie just is.
All right, so here we go, Jacob. This sequence in particular, this Bahia sequence with the Yaya girl, man,
Aurora, Aurora Miranda.
yeah. Man, Jacob, I love basically everything about this. I really do. It's so lively, it's so fun. This movie kind of veers into uncomfortable territory with Donald going after the women in the third act, but in this played a little bit more lighthearted, I think.
Yeah, it's like as I should say later on in when I was watching this, like it's a good thing Daisy never saw this.
Yeah, like keep in mind, Jacob, on our counter, we still haven't gotten a single tick on our stuff that Disney would never show nowadays, except maybe Jose with a cigar. Should we count that?
Yeah, I mean, like they did have a no smoking policy, but even later on, and like even like in the early his later appearances, they kind of cut out his cigar. So
Okay, let's add that one. You know what? Should we give that 1 or 2 points just because I feel like we need to give Jose Cigar kind of like a bonus point in this counter just because it shows up throughout the movie, but I don't want to count every single time it shows up. So how should we address that, Jacob?
I still only count that as a one. I mean, it was his signature, and like he did have it in so it was Amigos. So I guess it was part of his staple at this point. So I guess it would only count it as one.
Okay, let's count it as just one. All right, fair
And
enough.
like Walt Disney was a huge smoker himself, so it's not really anything they couldn't get away with back then either.
Sure, sure.
Little history lesson, folks. Walt Disney was a chain smoker.
Okay, and this, well, not exactly like groundbreaking, is definitely the best use of this technology we've seen up until this point in animation history.
Yeah, it's definitely. I mean, you could tell like where they cut corners to make it seem like it. You could tell like where they cut in like how they like filmed some of the actors below the waist and all that.
Uh huh.
But they definitely worked with what they had, and it worked, and it did work wonders. I mean, it's no Mary Poppins, but it's definitely no Mary Poppins, but it definitely works for what they're trying to achieve. It even adds a bit to the surrealism.
No, it does, because it's just like, especially in later sequences where there's a shot, especially where Panchito's supposed to be standing on some rocks, and it just looks like really disconnected, and he just looks like he's levitating above the rocks because the cells. I don't know. I'll point it out. Okay, the teeth guy, man. I love this teeth guy.
A lot of these guys just look like they're just like trying to look overly happy. You know, it almost
I,
kind of gives off a
I,
creepy kind
Jacob, they need to have a teeth performer.
of. I'm surprised their teeth didn't jump out of their mouths and start dancing themselves.
All right, so once again, this is like, it's, there's some surrealism going on. We just saw Jose's umbrella and had just, you know, turn sentient for a second and start dancing, for example. But it's not reached its apex yet, Jacob. We're still getting into the waves of the hard drugs that we took when we turned the movie on.
Oh yeah. As I said before, this movie is pretty much a roller coaster meets a travelogue meets LSD. But like I said, but as you mentioned, I really do like really do like everything that goes on here. Like it's just a really fun movie to watch, and kind of, and to see Donald like basically go crazy trying to get Aurora Miranda's attention.
But that's the thing, Jacob. Here's a distinction in this segment. Donald is after one woman throughout this whole segment. He only has his eyes on one woman, and he's gonna pursue that one woman. Keyword one.
Yep. And even then, he's like taking a lot of time to spend time with Jose too.
Yeah, yeah. That's why this segment is my favorite part of the movie, because we get that interaction between Donald and Jose. We get some great live action meets animation stuff, and it's not quite met its kind of like, it's not quite cynical yet. It's not quite like, ugh, this is, oh boy. It's definitely everything about this could still be shown today, I think.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of this stuff would just is very innocent and very and just kind of fun.
Hmm.
And even the kiss is just kind of, just kind of an innocent, friendly kiss. Even though Donald takes it a bit far. And then that's where his and then immediately the kiss is where everything starts to go crazy.
Yeah, that's where we start to get like, okay, this is all right. Dancing musical instrument, sure.
Weird, wild colors everywhere, people dancing in front of dots.
Yeah, this is definitely but you know what, Jacob? It's still something that Disney would do, I feel like it's not, well, I don't know. This is a little off the radar with the okay, and here we go. This might be my favorite bit of animation in the whole movie, is the cockfighting.
Yeah, I was like, when I first saw it, I was like, okay, but I actually had to admit how impressive it was.
It's damn, man, it's damn cool. I love the lighting. I love the reds.
And I love how it seamlessly transitioned to the live stuff.
By the way, cockfighting, something Disney would never ever show in an animated movie nowadays.
I guess that could count as two.
Yeah, we'll go with two.
I mean, that's so far there's two things: Panchito's cigar and cockfighting.
Mhm. I mean, this whole thing is just like it's a wonderland, man. And this is where the movie really starts to hit an apex with the surrealism. It's just like, we've got literally the whole town is alive and sentient and dancing, and I feel like there's a metaphor in the whole town being alive. I love how Aurora Miranda is basically kind of like this goddess that's like controlling everything. You know, has this real presence in this short, Jacob. I think she's the best guest celebrity that we get in this movie, because she radiates kind of this quality to her where, I don't know, she's just very iconic.
She felt like a natural fit.
Mm.
I mean, I've heard more about her sister Carmen, but I definitely like to see more about Aurora after this. And of course, Donald's still having enough of that, but that's still relatively tame.
Right. So then we get into kind of the surrealistic, like, okay, how the hell are we going to get full sized again?
Yeah, and that's definitely where things get really interesting. So, again, even still, this is still normal compared to what we see later.
Yeah, it's still like a basic cartoon format. It's almost sort of like a take on the Alice in Wonderland, drink me concept. Oh, wait, Jacob, one thing, using the word midget.
Yeah, that would kind of be seen as politically incorrect today.
Yeah, that's definitely a 3. We have to chalk that up to a 3.
That's more. That's more. Some people still use that term. It's not really considered as as derogatory as some other terms, but they probably
Right,
wouldn't.
but it's still Disney would never do nowadays.
Yeah, Disney themselves probably wouldn't do that.
So that's 3 things in Three Caballeros that Disney would never do. Jose's cigar, the cockfight, and then the terminology of midget.
Yeah.
Care about these things, folks.
Well, I don't know. They do a lot of that stuff. They would probably do a lot of that stuff in Pirates of the Caribbean, but we could probably just do by generalization, of course. You know what
But
I
let's
mean?
say in a Disney animated movie or a Pixar movie, let's limit it to that, because you're right. Like stuff like Pirates of the Caribbean and Marvel, it's like that's kind of getting outside of classic Disney at that point.
I'm mainly referring to Disney branded stuff that isn't PG-13.
I mean, the first Pirates of the Caribbean movie had like an extended running joke about Jack Sparrow being an alcoholic.
Among other things.
But why is the rum gone? So this is all really great squatch and stretch animation. It's it's not quite utterly surreal, but it's still definitely kind of a mind trip.
Still standard Disney stuff, regardless.
Uh-huh.
The whole squatch and stretch animation gags. That's kind of stuff they were known for.
I just think the situation in itself is just kind of weird. The fact that Jose is so much better at, making himself big, and he's just kind of trying to teach Donald how to do it. The fact that they were small in the first place. It's all a very odd setup, and like when we take moments like that, when we take a couple minutes out of the movie to expand on the lore of this of what's going on, it makes it makes the framing device all the more weird. And Jacob, this is, I think, the first unapologetically even un-Disney surreal moment that we get.
Oh yeah, for sure. The
I
Mexican
mean,
opening the Mexico present.
don't get me wrong, it's still maybe in the vein of something like the Pink Elephants on Parade or the March of the Cards, but it's still very much like, oh, okay, this is definitely experimental Disney right here.
Yeah, it's okay then. Donald in the Sandways. I thought it was a clever gag, but definitely not something you'd not expect to see going into what you've seen so far.
Mhm.
And now out of Donald pops Panchito.
So I love the fact that Panchito Pistoles just comes roaring into this movie, just literally guns blazing. I mean, he is just firing those pistols on all cylinders, and he does not give a shit. And let's just mark that up to the number 4 thing in this movie that Disney would never do nowadays.
Well, technically they kind of did show that in DuckTales.
Yes, but did they show him actually firing the pistols?
I actually don't remember.
You see, I don't know. I just feel like the amount of gunfire being shown in that, just the whole, like basically introducing the character, like, hey, I like to fire guns.
And forgive me if I'm mistaken, but do we actually ever hear Panchito say his name?
Not in this movie, no.
It's like here he is, and we don't even know his name technically. This random chicken just pops out of nowhere, firing guns, and does all this.
Okay, so now we're at the song, and the song is classic. It's iconic. It's one of the Disney staples, and I love it. And Jacob, the animation is just it's so flowing. It's maybe one of the closest things we get to Looney Tunes in Disney with just how energetic and vibrant it is, and just how many sight gags we get per second. I'm especially thinking about the end of this one, when we're talking about sight gags. But my God, I mean, it's catchy as hell. I love how we have a whole section in Spanish, which is really awesome. It's actually pretty atmospheric, rain and everything.
I said I'd actually like to see more stuff like this. Like like have like how I gave characters their own shorts. I would like to see like Panchito and Jose have their own.
That's what I'm saying. Instead of that stupid donkey short, we should have at least had like Panchito and Jose together in a short.
I meant well that too. I meant like aside from this,
Mhm.
like have their own like series of theatrical shorts.
Oh yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, right, right.
Oh, and I do love the gag where they're like trying to get for some reason Jose joins in Donald trying to get rid of Panchito. I mean, they were singing together. Now they're just suddenly trying to get rid of him.
Also, I'm going to do my very best to add an actual narrative to the insanity that is the next 20 minutes or so that we'll be experiencing in this movie. But in the song, it references, like, if some Latin baby says yes, no, or maybe, then they'll basically turn on each other. It's every man for himself. And Jacob, that's basically what happens at the end of the movie.
Foreshadowing.
I mean, the end of the movie does basically come down to this like weird conflict between Donald and and the Caballeros, where Donald's just like, you know what? Forget this whole travelogue nonsense. I just want to get laid, god damn it.
And even like it's kind of interesting though that after all that insanity, Panchito like introduces the story of like Mexican holidays too.
And here we have the most out of place but the most beautiful segment in the whole movie. I love, love, love this animation. This is classic Mary Blair. Like I'm sure you can tell, Jacob. Like the designs of the children look like straight out of Small World, right?
Yeah, definitely.
As a kid, I used to hate this segment. I really did.
And it's actually one of the like few overtly religious segments in a Disney short.
Hmm. But nowadays, just because of the Mary Blair of it all, I love to look at it. Still don't necessarily think it's necessary. It's like, when I think Three Caballeros, I do not think of a Christmas movie at all. It just, none of the rest of the movie has any vague indication that it's Christmas. And then suddenly this comes in, and
I think it's basically
it's nice, it's humble. It only lasts a couple minutes, so it's not like it's intruding on the film in the same way that that stupid donkey short does.
so basically its only purpose is to set up the pinata stuff.
Sure, sure, yeah. Which, you know what? That's edutainment. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it doesn't overstay its welcome. I will say it's a
Yeah,
well said. I mean, if all that's true, I actually learned something from this.
right, right.
And it's just so you can't watch cartoons and learn something, and not have not have it be hammered over your head.
So of course, Jose and Panchito are going to have a little fun trolling Donald with the pinata.
Oh
I
god.
love how the background in all these Caballero sequences is just kind of like purple and red. Just like this, like where the hell are they right now, Jacob?
It's like, well, they've been in, like, Donald was in this at the very beginning of the movie, so it's like he's just in this weird random place celebrating his
Did
birthday.
Donald die and go to purgatory?
Well, that would explain a lot.
This is literally what I imagine purgatory feels like.
That would actually explain a lot. I mean, I don't know. I mean, none of this is ever brought up in Donald's history again, except for the fact that the Caballeros exist.
Uh-huh.
But I mean, I did like a lot. So maybe he is in purgatory. Who knows? It's just kind of interesting that Panchito is actually the one who like actually has like the more educational stuff. That's the weird thing.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Like he has like the Christmas thing. He has the founding of Mexico City. It's
We
kind of
just have a little bit of a foreshadow of the bull fireworks, which are, that's going to play a critical role in the finale of the movie for
oh
God
yeah.
knows what reason.
They have to show it off somehow. Again, probably more Mary Blair paintings here.
Oh
But
yeah, for sure.
a lot of this movie is like basically a showcase of their work, which is really
That's one of the things that I really, really appreciate about this film, Jacob, is how there's so many different styles of animation, and even if a lot of it is Mary Blair, the Mary Blair artwork is presented in different ways. Like, you know what I mean? Like some of it is fully animated, some of it is like basically like a series of landscape shots, like this one is. Some of it is surreal, some of it is much more real world, but it's all just it all just kind of blends together. And Disney does not make movies like this anymore. And I'm not going to put a point in the in the meter or anything because there's nothing inappropriate about it. But it's just a fact, man. Like Disney, stylistically, Disney has become so homogenized, and I could go on an entirely different podcast about that subject. But I don't know, man. Just visually, I feel like Disney has not surprised us recently. Pixar's a little bit better at surprising us, but movies like this, man, movies like this just really go to show that yes, Disney and Walt's era had a formula for sure, but they weren't afraid to go outside the lines. Films like Fantasia prove that. Films like Bambi, even where the big emphasis wasn't on the characters but on the backgrounds. Walt was I don't know, Walt was an artist. And I feel like a lot of the modern Disney stuff we're getting. Can you tell I'm not really that excited for Ralph Breaks the Internet?
yes.
I mean, I'll see it, and I'm sure I'll have a good time with it. But it's just I don't know. The whole thing just feels very unnecessary.
Well, we'll see.
Okay, so here we go, Jacob. I feel like this is the sequence that reminded you of Epcot.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, this
Oh
is in.
yeah.
I mean, this is the scene that's like, oh, they kind of like that right at Epcot. I mean, because I do remember seeing something in that pavilion that like showed them on this flying carape or whatever. Sarape, I think that's what it's called.
Uh,
Like, I think they actually were flying around on a sarape in that short.
yes, they were. They were.
So yeah, that's why it reminded me of Epcot. Eric Goldberg actually animated that, I think. The one at Epcot, obviously.
I feel like this is a really good movie to watch before a trip to Disney World, just because, especially, it hypes you up for Epcot. You know what I mean? It hypes you up for experiencing a different culture and getting a taste of a different culture. And it might, obviously, Epcot, the World Showcase is much more than just the Mexico Pavilion. But I feel like just by giving, this celebration of travel and different cultures in general, it puts you in that mindset. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, oh yeah, for sure. It's just kind of interesting to see like Perfect representation of culture in this movie.
And that's the thing, Jacob, especially in this segment, like I'm not as big of a fan as the Pinchito stuff as I am as Jose's segment because I just think Jose's is just just flows a lot better. It's like one it's got like one beat to it, whereas Panchito's kind of jumps around. But every time I watch this, I do feel like I come away like, oh yeah, that's right. This movie did teach me that. And there is a lot of knowledge to be had from this movie.
It's kind of interesting that you said that Panchito's your favorite character, yet you like Jose's segment more.
I just really like Panchito's personality and design.
Yeah, it definitely is like a it's not like standard Disney design, but it's definitely like fits within the mold.
That's what I'm saying. Like Panchito really stands out to me as a Disney character just because like I love how cocky he is, but at the same time he's got a soft spot and he's very cultural
And that's
and
that's one reason like why I said like I would have liked to see these guys in like their own series of theatrical shorts.
uh
I mean, I'm not sure if they could. I'm not sure if they
make
did it.
no bones about it though, Donald Duck is my favorite Disney character of all time.
Yeah.
I'm just saying like in this particular movie, like between the other two Caballeros, Panchito is because Jose is fine. Jose is certainly a lot of fun, but I just think Panchito's personality stands out a little bit more, where Jose, beyond his first segment, is just kind of on the sidelines for a lot of it.
And even then, Donald seems to like be on the sidelines a lot too.
Uh-huh. But yeah, like I said, Jacob, Donald Duck, by all intents and purposes, is my go-to answer when someone asks me what your favorite Disney character is, because I love the history behind Donald Duck. I love how versatile he is, how you can put him in so many different situations. I love his design. I love his voice. Of course, he's just a master of comedy. So, great stuff there.
He's actually one of the few Disney characters to have a middle name. Fun fact. Fauntleroy.
All right, here we go, Jacob. Here we go. As soon as Donald arrives at this party, his motives kind of switch.
Yeah, and this is where things kick into overdrive.
This is basically the last 15 minutes of this movie is like definitively Donald Duck is trying to get laid and he doesn't care how many girls he sleeps with. He doesn't care what the ramifications are. He wants to get laid so bad.
And would this be like? And this would definitely be like another thing chalked up to the.
Oh yeah, chalk it up, man. Number 5 for sure. Yeah, you would never see anything like this.
Yeah, Disney definitely wouldn't do that nowadays.
I mean, that's the thing, Jacob. I feel like all the Donald pursuing women stuff, I feel like we have to kind of file it into different categories. Like this, for example, is wholesome. You know what I mean? Just Donald dancing with the girl. This is fine. This is fine. So let's not even make that mark quite yet. We're gonna basically, as soon as we leave this dance is when everything kind of starts to go downhill.
Oh yeah.
Like as soon as we leave this dance, Donald essentially becomes Harvey Weinstein.
And this is and as you mentioned earlier, this is like one of the parts where like they kind of like where the characters do feel kind of disconnected from the rest of the scene.
Yes, Jacob. I'm glad you bring that full circle because it definitely
The other thing,
these shots with Panchito, it's definitely the most obvious in the movie. And not to say it's bad. And I do think that Jose interacting with the guitar is kind of cool.
I think what sells is like the other scenes were shot like during the day where it looked more natural, but like here like it takes place at night and they really didn't even shade the characters properly in those sequences.
I think you're right about that. Yeah, I think the lack of shading is what does it. And that's what makes of course, shading is the big thing that Roger Rabbit kind of put into the equation here that really kind of changed the game.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. Like the earlier scenes looked fine. I mean, even this upcoming scene with the beach, which we'll talk more about, even that looks fine. Because like it takes place during the day.
Oh,
It's not even the lack of shadows that does it. It's like I think it was the shading that's like it looked like they were still taking place during the day, during the night.
Right, right.
And even I mean, it's still fine and all that.
All right, so remember when Donald was just dancing with the one girl right there? We didn't really see him pursue anyone else besides the one girl.
Yes.
Oh, here we go. Here we go.
Oh yeah. Definitely that's something they could this like the scene where they're like flying around on the carpet
I
pointing.
mean, Jacob, I want to make it clear, like, I'm not an SJW by any means. I don't want to get political here. I'm not necessarily against the message of equality and everything. Of course not. But this makes me uncomfortable, man, especially because Donald Duck is my favorite Disney character.
It's definitely not something they'd be able to do nowadays for
No,
sure.
no, okay. This is where officially we have to chalk up. What are we at now, Jacob? 4 or 5?
This would be five. I think the first
5.
one first one was the cigar, then the cockfighting. I think three was Panchito's guns.
Yes, Panchito's guns. Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Then four, I think four, I forget what four was. Yeah, it's
Did we
definitely
have a 4?
I don't know. But I think this pretty much count for both of them anyway. I think this entire
Let's just up to 4.
yeah, this pretty much sequence entire cover pretty much any like 4 through 10 anyway.
I mean, this is basically Donald becoming one of those douchebags who goes to Cancun to spring break just to get laid. Doesn't care who he sleeps with. He doesn't care how he does it. It's just like he's gonna get himself some tail.
And technically, you can almost kind of tell this wasn't actually shot in Mexico. You can actually kind of
And there's just something really off-putting about Donald just running around chasing after like all these women. Like I said, there's like just this inherent big difference when he's interacting with one woman as opposed to like a whole group of women. When it's the whole group of women, it's just like, okay, this is I
and
mean,
that's
don't
why
get me women seem to be into it. No, at no point in this movie does a woman not consent to Donald or anything like that. You know what I mean? I can't believe I'm using that terminology with this movie, but but still, it's very aggressive.
like I said, it's a good thing Daisy didn't see this. You're holding this against him forever. But yeah, that's definitely something they wouldn't get away with nowadays, and it definitely feels kind of out of place.
Oh yeah.
And even then, for the last 10 minutes, they don't really see that much of it anymore. You just see Mexico City and all that. Just I said you can also kind of tell that the beach scene wasn't even filmed in Mexico. You can almost just tell.
Uh-huh.
I mean, that's the one that actually looks like it was shot in a studio backlot.
Right, right.
Not that that's bad or anything, but you can just kind of tell.
All right, and we go back into weird birthday purgatory land for the last 10 minutes.
Yeah,
Uh,
where
is really kicked in at this point. We're really feeling the acid coursing through our veins. We're seeing the pyramid shapes, behind our eyeballs, Jacob.
the Illuminati.
I love the Super Mario 64 esque picture book that we can just jump into the pictures.
I would kind of like to see it in like instead of like a Mario where you jump into paintings, you jump into books. That'd be kind of interesting.
Let's get an open world Page Master game.
Actually, now that you mention it, this the whole thing kind of reminded me of this of that second world from Mario Odyssey.
I could see that.
I mean, it just kind of reminded me of that. I forget the name of that place, but it just kind of reminded me of it.
Are you talking Cascade?
Cascade Valley. No, no, not okay. Okay, no, the not the Cascade Falls. The one that's actually like takes place in the desert.
Oh, Sand Kingdom.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
Kind of
Yeah.
remind.
The first one's Cap Kingdom, then Cascade, then Sand.
Yeah, that's the one I'm thinking of.
Uh-huh.
I definitely, I must say, I like the visuals of this segment with that lady, that I think that's Dora Luz or Luz or whatever her name is. I don't
And you
know.
know what, Jacob? At this point, the movie is definitely like we are literally tripping on acid right now. Like this is what an acid trip feels like. But point, um, by the same point, at the very least, Donald goes back to pursuing one woman and not a bevy of women.
Eh, even if it's one that seems to be just like entirely in his mind.
Well, that's what LSD does to you, Jacob. I don't know what to tell you. You know, LSD is a powerful drug. Don't do it, kids.
Yeah, listen, look what it did to Donald. I mean, look, it turned him into a butterfly and neon lights, and he's seeing women's faces and flowers.
When in the Three Caballeros movie do you think Donald ingested the LSD?
I don't know. Probably after who knows? Who knows? Panchito probably slipped it to him while he was in the I mean, like, who knows? Maybe while Panchito and Jose were railing him, that were like pulling him with the umbrella, they injected some LSD into his
Oh
veins.
God. All right, I mean seriously, look at this, man. Just look at this. All the colors, all the splashes, all the you know, at this point it looks kind of like maybe like neon-esque is how I would describe it.
I mean, the animation's
It's
done.
just
The animation's impressive, but
oh, it's beautiful, man. It's so flowing.
it's just like this kind of sequence just goes on for like 10 minutes.
But again, it's so weird. It's so weird.
It just really doesn't have anything to do with the rest of the movie. I mean, it's not a travelogue. It really doesn't have anything to
Well,
do
like
with.
I said, Jacob, like I said, the way I connected is it's basically like the three Caballeros are like dicking around, getting in the way of Donald's chances with this LSD hallucination dream girl.
And
And
the weird
as they say in the song, you know, if some Latin baby says yes, no, or maybe, then it's every man for himself.
it's like you have to wonder, like, what were they on when they storyboarded some? It's like, how do you even storyboard something like this?
Yeah, and the live action, of course, just adds to this realism. All right, now here we go. It's like back to Donald just being like, "Oh boy, just a bevy full of women. Ooh, I like that." And he's chasing after them, Jacob. He's literally chasing them, and he's giant and in red. Oh God. Okay, this, Jacob, just this.
Yes.
How is this not a meme?
Who knows?
It's.
The,
I'm sorry, folks. This is the only way we can talk through the last 5 minutes of this movie. It's like there's no words to describe what's happening on screen. It's literally just like colors and oh God and
are you referring to which part are you referring to? The giant red Donald or the cartoon horse with realistic legs?
no, I'm talking about the three Caballeros with the realistic legs.
Yeah, that's yeah. At this point, I was like, I'm not even going to try and understand what's going on.
Right. You're like, okay, movie, you've given me enough. Like I said, Jacob, this is just to the point in the movie where it's like, okay, like all the allusion to this being a travelogue or a series of shorts has just gone out the window, and we are in surrealism land, my friend. For the last 10 minutes of this movie, we are just going to sit here and we're going to enjoy the mind fuck that is the last 10 minutes of this movie. And there's no analyzing it, there's no dissecting it. It just is. It just exists. I mean, it's crazy. It's one of the most, like, honestly, Jacob, I think it's one of the most impressive things that Disney's ever done, just in terms of, in terms of how ambitious it is. And, oops, sorry.
And can we check this up to like some? I mean, it's not entirely something that's necessarily inappropriate, but definitely something they wouldn't do. At least they wouldn't do nowadays.
Yeah, sure. We can chalk it up. Sure. It's.
I mean, most of the stuff we chalked up are just generally inappropriate stuff. But I mean,
you know what, Jacob? I mean, Disney is not beyond doing surrealistic humor, but I feel like this is too much.
yeah,
Like it's not too much for this movie because this movie would not be this movie without the mindfuck of the ending. But it's too much for modern Disney. I think if you put this in a modern day Disney movie, people's heads would explode.
I mean, they've done surrealistic stuff in Nightmares and even in modern stuff too, but so it's not entirely inaccurate or not
No,
out.
but I mean, there's a difference between like the trippy drug sequence in The Good Dinosaur and this. You know what I mean?
I mean, this beats Dumbo out for weirdest acid sequence.
Oh, no question, no question. This makes the pink elephant segment of Dumbo look like the rest of Dumbo.
And this makes the pink elephants look subtle. I mean, at least in that movie, that had an excuse where Dumbo got drunk. At least Dumbo was drunk. This is just like, okay, why?
Well, like I said, Jacob, it's one step beyond being drunk. This is full on LSD right here.
He's like, but at least in the Dumbo, we actually get to see him getting drunk, even though I can't believe I'm actually saying that sentence. I can't believe I'm actually saying that
Yeah, we're
sentence.
at the dancing cactus girl, right?
Yeah.
So what do you? This is like just a whole other. It's just a whole other. It's like a drug trip within a drug trip. You know what I mean? Like we are like in an inception of surrealism at this point.
Yeah, it's like where do we even go after this? It's just like basically like it's basically like they were saying like, okay, we need to fill out 10 more minutes of this movie. What should we do?
This is you know what's interesting is it's kind of taking like the sort of the dare I say the structure of this movie where they go to an exotic location and Donald dances with a beautiful woman and just goes crazy with it.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with the crazy part. like it's like we need to fill out 10 minutes of this movie. What should we do? Let's just do whatever the heck we want. Good job.
I mean, seriously, Jacob, I would love to know like the story meetings that went on in this movie. I am fascinated by that. It's just like
okay for the it's like okay for,
really, what the hell were they thinking quality to it, but not in a bad way, just in a genuinely curious kind of like sort of way.
okay in this next sequence we're gonna see Donald like flying around with seeing a girl in a cactus. Then we're going to see a bunch of dancing cacti shaped like ducks. all, all the while, this live action girl's just gonna dance in the middle of all of it.
With like these giant anthropomorphic terrifying cactuses.
Yes. If in all honesty, if that girl honestly knew what was going on around her, she probably wouldn't be as happy. If I were that girl, I'd be like, I'm freaking the heck out here.
Like maybe this girl, a performer in a theater that Donald like just stumbled practices or just stage rip.
Yeah, it's our head canon. This is all just in Donald's head. The visuals are in Donald's head. And then she turned into a cactus.
Movie, which is, hey, remember that firework bull? Yeah, let's bring that back.
And for some reason, Donald's inside it. Why is he inside?
Right, just and Jose gets his powers of of multiplying himself back.
Why does any of this happen? Who the hell knows? Let's just do something to wrap this up and just basically be as crazy and insane as possible. And it works.
I mean, it's very cartoony.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with being cartoony. It's just that just keep in mind this movie began with Donald opening presents and watching a penguin short about a penguin sailing to the tropics. It doesn't feel like the same movie anymore.
Oh man.
I mean,
and now Donald's facing off against the firework, and then explosion of color.
Like I said, does this even feel like the same movie as it started out?
No, it really doesn't, Jacob. Not in the slightest. And that I feel like is what really gives this movie its kind of drug trip vibe to it, because it's like it ends in just such a radically different place than it starts. It's like, when it starts, it's so mundane, right? It's like it's when you first ingest the drug. It's like, well, I don't feel anything. You know what I mean? It's like it's the whole like this stuff isn't working, man. But then gradually throughout the movie, you're just like, oh, I'm feeling it. I'm feeling it. And then by the time Cheeto shows up, you're like, oh, I am definitely feeling it. Oh, damn.
Are you feeling it now, Mr. Tiki? But
So I'm sorry, folks. I don't know how to talk about this movie without the drug trip analogy because it's like it truly is just one of the most surreal, nightmarish things that Disney has ever made, but in a good way. And you know what? Like I said, Jacob, by the same point, in the same breath, this movie is just a surrealistic nightmare, and it's also a damn good, damn effective travelogue.
yeah, it's like I mean, I won't deny it. I'm not going to deny any of that. I mean, it definitely sets out what it's to accomplish. Whatever it wanted to accomplish is beyond me, but whatever it wanted to accomplish, it definitely accomplished it. Is that a good way of looking at it?
Yeah, for sure.
It set out to be a good travelogue, and it set out to be this weird, zany, batshit insane animation showcase, and it definitely succeeded. Definitely succeeded in that. I mean, this
Okay,
movie,
folks. So
watching it all. I mean, remember how I mentioned how I pretty much had to watch the movie in segments because I was busy all day. That was pretty much my first sitting watching it in its entirety and uninterrupted.
oh, now you know. Now you truly grasp the sheer insanity that is watching the Three Caballeros.
Oh yeah, for sure.
All
Watching
right.
it
And
all,
in my
watching it.
final thoughts, folks, I just want to stress that I think this movie is a bloody masterpiece. I mean, narratively, God no. God no. Narratively, it sucks. But just in terms of the visuals and the music and the way it all comes together and the animation, just artistically speaking, just on a sheer artistic level, this movie is one of the finest things that Disney's done. It's got so many different styles of animation. It's got so many different points of view. It's got so many different settings, and it weaves them all together. And it's just a joy to behold, Jacob. It's going on a trip. It's
It reminds
you know
it,
you, like
it reminds me of like a simpler time of filmmaking where not everything had to be like this had this huge epic story, or heck, even at this time Disney was known for their epic stories. I mean, or even
right,
just
right.
even time, but just like it's just like sometimes these movies just need to be a fun little visual experience, and that's
Yeah, and Jacob, if I'm being honest with you, whenever I revisit this movie, for the most part, except for in research for this, like 90% of the times, I'll fast forward through that first present and get to the Jose stuff, because really that last 40 minutes is where the movie really starts to pick up and start to establish its identity as the Three Caballeros, and starts to become what it ultimately is. And that's the only complaint I have about the movie, is that all those shorts at the beginning, beyond just our little fan theory that it's kind of like sets you up for a false expectation about what the rest of the movie is going to be like, and then that makes the last 5 minutes where it's just like what is being thrown in my face right now? The colors, I can't take it.
can you even describe what goes on really in those last few moments with words?
Donald is trying to kill the Three Caballeros with the bull firework, but then the bull firework turns on him, and then the Three Caballeros are like, "Don't worry, Donald, we have your back," and they explode the bull firework, and then they're best friends again after
Yeah.
the heroes stab Donald in the duck by preventing him from getting laid.
Yep,
There, I did it, Jacob. I did it. I did it.
that pretty much sums it up. It only sums up the non surreal part.
Okay.
Well, this is definitely quite a trip.
But no, at the end of the day, this is one of my favorite Disney movies. I'll always have a soft spot for it. I'll always be thankful to my grandparents for including this one in our VHS collection and making sure that I wasn't just watching, the Snow Whites and the Beauty and the Beasts and the Aladdins of the world, but I also got my taste of, a bunch of different obscure Disney movies like this one. And it's just a really special movie to me. It really is. This movie is my childhood. You know what I mean? This movie represents my childhood more than a lot of Disney movies. There's certain I would say it's this, it's a Goofy movie, and it's The Rescuers Down Under. I know that's like a really eclectic mix of Disney movies, but what can I say? We all like what we like, and for me personally, those three movies were really the ones from early childhood for me that that I really, really just grew an appreciation for and really just fell in love with. And they're all three of them are movies. I feel like a Goofy movie is a little bit more in the cultural zeitgeist than the other two, but still, they all three of them are movies that are definitely not the first thing people think of when you're asked like, hey, what's your favorite Disney movie? Jacob, it's like, honestly, my go-to answer for my favorite Disney movie is probably Lilo and Stitch for very personal reasons, because I saw that movie like a couple days before going to Disneyland for the first time. And so it kind of instilled with me a love of Hawaii. That love of Hawaii translated over to the Tiki Room. The love of the Tiki Room translated into the screen name of Tiki, and that's been a big part of my life. So Lilo and Stitch, it's like, that's one of those movies that I owe everything to. And Goofy movie is probably my favorite Disney movie. Like on a personal level, I think everything about Goofy movie fires on all cylinders. The character development, the songs are all great. The songs in Goofy movie are underrated. The animation in Goofy movie is actually quite nice for a Disney Toons production. It's really flowing and pretty atmospheric in some spots. But Three Caballeros, Jacob, I mean, outside of Fantasia, which is the big one that everyone goes to in terms of like, you want a Disney movie with no plot but beautiful animation, here's Fantasia. And Jacob, I would even say that Three Caballeros might even be a step above Fantasia. Not in terms of like, obviously Fantasia is the bigger and bolder and, more lavish production and everything. But I honestly feel like Three Caballeros, just in terms of narrative structure, like took even more risks. I feel like they took more risks with this movie simply because they could, because it was done on a low budget. It was featuring, it was featuring a character that was going to draw box office regardless, and it was kind of made as like this little side movie. So with the freedom they had to express themselves artistically, and like I said, with Mary Blair being my all-time favorite artist in anything, just the stylization, the color, the atmosphere that she evokes, the emotion she evokes in me, she's my all-time favorite artist. And so this movie is just it's on another level for me, artistically speaking, Jacob. Obviously not narratively, obviously not in terms of characterization, but artistically this movie's hard to beat. It really is. I mean, it does things that you would never think you would see in a Disney movie.
Yeah, I don't know how much I can add on to any of that.
No, that's fine. It's fine.
Because obviously, as I mentioned before, I don't really have nostalgia for this movie.
Yeah, of course, of course. I mean, any final thoughts, in terms of just the experience of watching it all the way through for the first time and what that was like?
Well, I'm not entirely unfamiliar with the whole, surrealistic Disney stuff. I mean, I've seen like a lot of their earlier efforts, and even then, like a lot of the earlier stuff you see as Disney wouldn't really you wouldn't really recognize anymore nowadays.
Uh-huh.
But even this, a lot of this seemed like standard Disney stuff up until the very end. So I must say that definitely the experience of the movie was definitely a treat for me. I'm not sure if personally I'd call it one of my favorites. I mean, of the package films I've seen, I'd probably call this like one, like probably the second favorite. I mean, would you count Fantasia as like as a package film?
No, I would not, but only because the package film, like the terminology of a package film, means just by its very definition, it's a cheaper film to make, and Fantasia was obviously a very expensive film to make.
Okay, then I guess of the package films, I've definitely probably called this one my maybe second behind Ichabod and Mr. Toad, mainly because of Sleepy Hollow.
That's the thing, Jacob. That's the thing. This one is my favorite package film, but I feel like Ichabod, like the Ichabod segment of Ichabod and Mr. Toad, might be my favorite segment in a package film. But just, I mean, the package behind the package film, right? The framing device behind a package film. I feel like that's a very underrated part of what makes a package film a package film. And so, in that regard, I feel like this movie really nails it. You know, Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad has the library that connects them together, and that's all well and good and everything. It's fine. It works. It certainly gets the job done for what it's trying to do. But this movie goes so beyond, and, you know, this movie, it fascinates me that the framing device is the movie by all intents and purposes.
I
It's,
mean,
like I said, this
they give it so.
conception in that way.
Oh yeah, I kind of like to see them do like another one of these, like like a bigger budget package film nowadays.
I'd love that, Jacob. I really would. I anything that would get Disney to do a variety of different animation styles, because I mean, I guess I can weave this into my final thoughts a little bit. I don't want to get up on a soapbox or anything, but uh I mean, Jacob, I really do feel like the style of Disney is becoming quite homogenized. I don't feel the same way about Pixar, but by the same token, you know, we're getting Incredibles 2 this year, which was a good movie, and we're getting Toy Story 4 next year, which I'm very excited about. But, you know, suffice to say, we're not getting an original Pixar movie for quite some time after the majesty that was Coco. And I don't know, man, just watching this movie again, it made me remind me, like, yes, Disney had a formula, but Disney also, like, you know, they switched it up. They didn't just stick to one look. Like, even movie to movie, like, you know, like, for example, compare something like 101 Dalmatians to Lady and the Tramp. Like, those two came out like right after each other, but 101 Dalmatians has that really rough kind of pencil look to it, and Lady and the Tramp is much more like classic Disney, you know, like all the, you know, like all the rounded edges and everything, all the brighter colors. And you know, I feel like in Walt's era, every Disney movie had a, you know, had a distinct look, a distinct flavor. And man, I gotta say, I really feel like we're missing that with Disney nowadays. I feel like these Disney movies that are coming out, they're not to say they're not good movies, for sure. They're great movies with great characters, but I feel like Disney's maybe even focusing a little bit too heavily on characters. And, you know, I would like to see more style. You know what I mean? I really want to see more style.
I mean, I think that'd be a good place to end it there. I
I
mean,
think so.
I
So
mean, we could that could be like a overall thesis statement for both of us.
for sure, for sure. All right, folks. Well, thanks so much for joining us on this discussion. I very much apologize for the minor technical difficulties we had throughout it, but I think we were able to get through it pretty damn good, all things considered.
Sorry about
And
that.
Jacob, I feel like we should make this a. I feel like we should make this a regular thing. I feel like you and me should start doing commentaries on a regular basis for underappreciated, under the radar Disney movies like this. What do you think?
I mean, I would be down for that. I mean, if any of you have any ideas of what we'd like to do next, feel free to shoot us a message.
Now, of course, I'm going to be on my Disney World trip in the first week of December, and we've got a lot of stuff to, you know, we've got Shrek month. We still have to do the debate. We've got some early Christmas stuff that we want to get in the pipeline before I leave. So I don't know if we'll have. Of course, we have Ducktales every week as well. You and I are going to be talking about Fantastic Beasts this week. So we've got a busy schedule. So I'm not quite sure when the next one of these is going to be. Jacob, would you be down to do Rescuers Down Under as the next one?
Heck yeah, I love Rescuers Down Under.
Let's do it. Let's make a plan of it. Haha.
If anyone else has any ideas, feel free to let us know.
All right.
I
All
mean,
right.
because It doesn't even have to be like necessarily a movie. Like if there's any shorts you want us to cover, we'd be down for that too.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. All right, folks, that'll do it. I sure hope you enjoyed this. This is definitely like a bucket list podcast for me, so I really hope it turned out well. And in the meantime, see you guys later.
See ya. What's cooking?
Waiter, there's LSD in my Donald Duck short.